Hello there. Come here, my little friend. Don't be afraid. Tell me, young Luke, what brings you out this far? It's the little droid. I think he's searching for his former master, but I've never seen such devotion in a droid before. He claims to be the property of an Obi-Wan Kenobi. Is he a relative of yours? Do you know who he's talking about? Obi-Wan Kenobi. Obi-Wan. Now that's a name I've not heard in a long time. A long time. I think my uncle knows him. He said he was dead. No, he's not dead. Well, not yet. Welcome. I'm here on a Sunday evening, getting ready to fire up, what's the name of that game? A highly recommended game that I just downloaded. Alabaster Dawn by the creators of Crosscode. Crosscode, incredible music, incredible game. So I'm looking forward to Alabaster Dawn. Looks a lot of fun. Like a lot of fun. And I've also played, earlier today, the public alpha of Archeron, which is by Bonfire Studios. And it is surprisingly fun. I say that, when I say surprisingly fun, it's really because in today's rough and tumble PvP landscape, if you're somebody that isn't good at Twitch play and super fast reflexes, it can be very intimidating. One of the coolest things that I liked about it was when I started, it threw me in to the middle of the frying pan, and I got killed pretty fast. Then it adjusted, and it auto pairs you with people. It finds you a game. It finds you a team. Haven't quite figured out how to customize your team and say we've got 3 players and we're going to get in, but it auto does that for you, so you don't have to like sort of ask around on Discord. There's a really thriving Discord channel. Finally, it made the difficulty far less somehow. Like I was able to play for a good half hour with another 2 people. It's 3v3, and you ascend various levels of a tower, finding items, and it is to date myself, it is kind of like Gauntlet on steroids, and kind of refreshing for the world of maybe it's MOBA. I don't know genre-wise exactly what it would be, but it was fun. It was fun. I did not expect to have the level of fun that I did. They've done a lot of work in terms of finding the right game type and bringing it to the alpha state that it's in now. So check that out. Check out Alabaster Dawn. Let's get to the question. Tamar from Israel. This DEFGECD is a very active member of Funky Rustic Social House, posts a lot on gear and music writing and all kinds of stuff. So happy to answer this question. Thank you for it. Do you do any casting of voice talent yourself? Sure. If so, exactly how do you cast, and what are some considerations you have when choosing which of the auditioning actors to cast? Well, let's start with that one. This is a multi-parter. Exactly how do I cast? Well, the first thing that I need is really good character descriptions. Typically, like for example, on Stormgate, we created character sheets, and they would include the age range of the character, the ethnicity of the character. Sometimes the ethnicity and other physical attributes are not needed, like particularly for aliens. Like you have to get creative with descriptions, right? So all of that with a little bit of a backstory, ideally a picture, and sometimes some video footage for actors that really want to get into the character and know about it, even just for casting, and then some sample lines and references like from YouTube. And that's a very bare bones, not bare bones, but it's a pretty standard set of information. So I look at that and what like in terms of my casting. So we used Bright Skull and LazuArts as well for casting with Stormgate. They both had a very similar style. They would get us a whole bunch of like MP3s with actors they would go out to, and the casting director, whoever was doing that, would say, I think that these people would fit for this character description. And sometimes it's very thorough. Sometimes there's hundreds or at least dozens that get narrowed down, and we get recommendations. And so when it's just me, it's the feel of a number of different things. There's story-based lines which are delivered cinematically, like you would find in a film or a TV show. There's game-based lines that have to do with the speed of how, say, a unit response in Stormgate, or if it's like an FPS, how convincing can they sound in the moment. Like take a playthrough of Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2. You have multiple variations of each line. There's the whispered lines. There's the lines where you are swinging across New York and you're projecting a little more, or there's just when you're walking around and it's more casual. So there's those kinds of game variations that are needed. What are considerations you have when choosing the auditioning actors? So those are the considerations I have. Also, what are some processing chains that you like to use for achieving certain effects and sounds in either music or sound design, including vocal processing when someone's playing a robot or an alien? That's kind of broad. Music sound design and VO have very different processing chains, typically. Music, oh boy, yeah, it's highly dependent on the type of music, the type of instruments that are employed, the type of mix. All of it boils down to, are my drums cutting? And I have to admit, man, I need to go back and really do some specific focus work on percussion, because percussion, you'll find that people like Vert, Jacob Kaufman, Danny Baranowski, Will Roger, the really heavy hitters, Big Giant Circles, definitely, Jimmy Henson, really have practiced their mixing and power for percussion. And that's something that I can just sort of like not put enough effort into, because back in the mod days, you just put your drums in and the drum samples had to be the sound that they needed to be. There's no effects. So getting compression in the right places, knowing it has taken me a long time. I used to way over EQ and over compress everything. As you go through things, and especially with the different kinds of VSTs that come around, the instruments, you don't need that nearly as much. Omnisphere, for example, always needs to be turned down 12 dB. That's kind of a standard thing that I do. But that's just part of my mixing process, not so much the effects chains. I've got lots of different stuff, like sound toys. I still use the occasional Waves plugin. Definitely a lot of, well, there's Melda, but I'm thinking of the people that make Pro-Q, FabFilter. So FabFilter is part of my chain in terms of just putting EQ. Mark Kilborn turned me on to Smooth. I have not really put that through the paces yet. So that's a recommendation there. Just because he recommends it doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody, but Mark Kilborn is one of the best sound designers in the business. So yeah, so for sound design, it's anything that helps the frequencies that need to cut when you're working on it cut. But it's a whole different ball game when you make it into the game engine, because you've got real-time mixing going on, and you have to go through Wise, or you have to go through the Metasound system, which has its own effects means of processing, or FMOD, to apply the effects in real time that in a certain kind of chain that needs to happen. And then there's side chaining, which Wise has its own process for doing, which I believe has become easier than setting up a big sort of, or relatively involved plugging the signal into certain effects and then having them come back out in terms of affecting something else in the bus structure and that sort of thing. So I think they've made it a little easier on side chaining. I need to check out the latest version of Wise, or I am actually in the process of being more current on the absolute latest Wise beta 2025. Anyway, that's the answer as well. It's a short and sweet answer, hopefully sweet, of that one. And another thing, this could be its own video if you prefer. What was it like for you to transition from trackers and more conventional DAW, and which DAWs have you used since that switch started happening? Okay. What was it like? It was a little, it took some time. I went from trackers to DAWs when I started at Ion Storm Austin, when we moved into a building that was off of Steck. There's Steck and Mopac. And we had this, most of the floor of this one particular part of this pretty big office building that was kind of neat. And we got to build a studio. We got to have a big room with its own vocal booth from Acoustic Systems. and some treatment that Mark Genfan helped us out with. And then I know this isn't the DAW, so and then we had separate editing rooms that I worked in one, Todd Simmons worked in another, and then Mark Lampert, who just finished up a long and successful audio directorship with Bethesda. And he's still with Bethesda, but I mean, like, that was his first, I think, full-time audio job out of college, and so he was in the big room. It was a great space, and I switched then from tracking definitely into Nuendo, and that would have been around 2002, not long after the first version of Steinberg's Nuendo was introduced. And it took some doing. Things like Absinthe were in the early phases of, I mean, VST instrumentation was in its early days. Giga Sampler was just getting going. A lot of hardware synths had to be employed to record in real time rather than software-based stuff. So it took some doing, particularly from the mixing side. A lot of my stuff was really drenched in reverb. If you go back and listen to Deus Ex: The Conspiracy, you can hear some of that. Deus Ex: Invisible War has a lot of my learning trial by fire on the Nuendo scene, so to speak, and that just takes time. When you're on the ground and you have to do it in a production environment, there's no better place. Learning by doing in a place that has its milestones and a lot of interdisciplinary considerations. So which DAWs? Yeah, so which DAWs? I'm still a Nuendo advocate and user. I enjoy it a great deal. I don't plan on changing. I do sometimes use Reaper. There's lots of friends that have extolled its virtues, its scripting capabilities, its ability to just do a lot of stuff with getting in there and tinkering, whereas there's more of a set in place. But Nuendo has the benefit of having a lot of feedback, and I believe that it tends to respond to quite a bit of the feedback. Having said that, that kind of ties into where we are now with software in general. I love the software companies that I've worked with over the years, Steinberg being one of them. We've got things like the Unreal Engine and Unity and now Godot. Imagine a world where you get to say, hey, ChatGPT, there's people that are nervous about this, but hear me out. How do I fix this problem in my DAW or my tracker or my game middleware? And you get to, maybe you need to do the prompting to do it right, and you need to really, really do craft-based work and technical work in order to make it the right way. I am really looking forward to the possibilities with not having to rely on a roadmap for a specific piece of software and a developer, because there's only so much they can do to serve individual project needs. I think there's that's a great new horizon for AI tech. I'm I'm not, I have issues as a creator with generative technology. Of course I do. We all do. But this other aspect of it to help with our tools, I think there could be some pretty amazing things. So stay tuned for that. Tamar, thank you so much. Thanks for your contributions. And I'll get to the next question tomorrow.